Okay, so hello everyone. Tonight we are tackling the topic of are your hormones causing your weight gain? Because this is something that a lot of women ask about, obviously, with perimenopause and menopause, and we do the Dutch testing and we do that with our clients. And it always comes about because we are looking for the answers as to why you can be eating healthy and you can be getting those steps in and dropping your calories, but the scale doesn't move or it starts to go up and our clothes might start feeling tighter. We feel inflamed and puffy and tired. And logically, we all want to go to, is this coming from our hormones? And most women are not imagining this, right? Hormonal changes, as you probably know by now, absolutely are going to shift how our body is going to decide to burn or if it's going to decide to store fat. And so today you're going to learn kind of which hormonal patterns typically we look at first when we're looking at weight gain specifically, what's normal, what's not, and what you can kind of actually do and figure out based on, if you have some lab work or certain numbers are lower based on symptoms that you're experiencing or the lab work that you've had. So there are 5 big hormones that we're going to focus on today. There are a lot of other ones. There's neurotransmitters. There's lots of things that can influence fat loss, weight gain, those kinds of things. So there's 5 really big hormone systems that we want to look at. And that's going to cover our thyroid. Our thyroid's kind of like our metabolism dial. It determines how many calories your body burns at rest. Obviously, if your body's very good at burning calories, easy to lose weight. If it's not so good at burning calories, a lot harder to lose weight, and you are more likely to gain weight. Number 2 is cortisol. Of course, you guys know me. If you've been around for any amount of time, we are going to talk about stress and fat storage here. Number 3 is insulin. So we're looking at blood sugar and weight gain, particularly around the belly. This is a big concern and that we see really start to become an issue during perimenopause and menopause. Number 4 is our estrogen and progesterone. We're going to lump those two together. That's going to impact our fat distribution, cravings, bloating, and then also we have to look at testosterone. It is wildly underutilized or even spoken about a lot of the time. So everyone thinks it's just about muscle, but it's so much more than that. And so let's break down the real signs your hormones, not your calories, are causing your weight gain. So let's talk about, symptom clues, what you feel before our labs might actually show it. And so when we're looking at thyroid, we are going to look at our T3, our T4, and our reverse T3. Those are 3 really big ones that we like to look at. And some signs that, you could still be in the normal range. And normal is, I don't like that word. It's common, not normal. And also lab values and what they determine as normal is the average among society. And the average is not healthy, let's be honest. And so when we're looking at thyroid issues, some symptoms that this could be happening to you and that you might want to investigate are weight gain despite eating less. This is going to come up in pretty much all of them. So just be aware of that. If you feel cold all the time, so circulation isn't super great. If we find our digestion is quite slow, we get bloated and constipated. If your hair is thinning or your skin is starting to really dry out, or you're really, really tired where, you sleep and you still don't wake up feeling refreshed, even if you've slept like the 8 hours, the 9 hours. And so how the thyroid specifically is going to, affect your weight gain and ability to be able to lose weight is that, let's look at T3 first. And I've given this analogy a few times on the podcast, so this might be a little bit of a refresher for some of you guys. But we want to have enough T3. Most labs are going to treat or test your TSH, which is your brain telling your thyroid, hey, I need you to produce thyroid hormone. So it's like you are the brain telling your daughter, the thyroid, to do her homework, to do her chores. We call her Stacy. And so you're telling Stacy, do your homework, do your chores, do your homework, do your chores. She does her homework, does her chores. Fantastic. That is your T4. That is how much thyroid hormone is being produced. But when our TSH is low, we are not telling our thyroid to produce that T4 anymore. So T4 starts to go down. And that's what most people are testing is how well is your brain communicating to your thyroid to do its job? And then is your thyroid doing its job? Those 2 numbers can be totally normal. T3 is the one that we care about. So the T4 is kind of like when you're anticipating a check in the bank. You're waiting for this wire transfer to come through. And it takes like 3 days. It's like hypothetical. It's not in anyone's bank account. It's there, you know it's coming, but you can't actually use it yet because you have to wait for it to clear. We don't really care about that. That's kind of like your T4. It's like all this theoretical usable cash. T3 is the actual cash that we can use that to pay our bills and do the things that we want, which is what we want, right? And so if we don't have enough T3, the role of T3 is it's almost like a key and it goes into a lock. It turns the lock and turns on fat burning. It makes it so our body burns more calories at rest. It takes food, it turns it into fuel. So you have energy and you also lose weight. Amazing. We want both of those things. Those are two things we really struggle with in this time of our life. And so this is where testing can be kind of like, because you'll get T4 tested, you'll get TSH tested, but T3 is usually the problem that we're looking at here. And so we want to make sure we have adequate T3. If we don't have enough, metabolism slows down, body's not as good at burning calories, much harder to lose weight. And so what happens is it's almost like a thermostat, if you want to think about it that way. If our thyroid dial is kind of turned down, the heat is turned down, everything starts to slow down to conserve energy. So we want to make sure that we have enough T3 there. Weight gain that we see a lot in women, it's not because you're overeating half the time. Like it's very rare we have women coming into our program who are eating too much. I can like count those people on my hands. It is something going on internally, making your body worse at burning calories. And so this is one of the big things that we see is in thyroid, because what we know with people who have thyroid issues is that, like for women specifically, is that women are 8 times more likely than men to develop hypothyroidism. So a thyroid that is slow, T3 is low. We also know with T3, the conversion is the problem. So you could have enough T4, you could have enough TSH, but if your body can't turn that check cleared into actual money into your bank account, that's the problem. And so the conversion issue can be a number of things. It can be due to stress. It can be due to a lack of certain micronutrients. Eating low carb for too long will actually do this, which is why I don't love keto. We have to make sure that if you're going to do it, it's for a very short period of time for a specific reason, then we're taking you out of it. And so we see inflammation will be a massive blockage of conversion. We will also see gut health issues will block conversions. We get a lot of that T4 to T3 conversion in our gut. And so we need to figure out, why is this conversion low? Why is our thyroid struggling? But then also you can have reverse T3 that is high. And again, this doesn't typically get tested in a lot of people. Reverse T3 is almost like a shield that goes over top of that lock, preventing your T3 to going in. So you could have great TSH, you could have great T4, you could have great T3, but if your reverse T3 is there blocking it, you can't turn the key for fat burning. And again, there's lots of reasons that your reverse T3 could be high. The most common one is stress, because your body is going to prevent that fat burning and puts you into that storage state. I talked about it on yesterday's podcast, actually, that you guys can go check out to get a little bit more deeper into that stuff. And so we are seeing a huge rise in women developing hypothyroidism, or T3 is really low, even though T4 and TSH is good, or they're all kind of low and they're all kind of struggling. And the reason is unfortunately due to genetics. Where we are just 8 times more likely than men to develop hypothyroidism. But also what we see is that with women, as they go through perimenopause and menopause and the hormone changes that happen, it really starts affecting that conversion of the T4 to T3. And this is because when estrogen goes down, inflammation goes up. Our stress tolerance decreases, so cortisol goes up a lot higher. There's multiple things that really start to affect this. And so you could look normal on paper, but we have to dive deeper in terms of, okay, what is actually going on in your body? Let's take a bigger scope of this. Like, let's zoom out a bit and look at all the factors that could affect this to really, try and get your T3 to a better level, because where normal is right now is not that great. We want to be aiming for optimal. So that's thyroid. That's the first one. The next one, of course, is cortisol. You guys know how much I love to talk about this, but there are different patterns of cortisol, which is why we do Dutch testing with all the women in our program. It will show us where your cortisol is at different times of the day. If I would have gone and gotten my cortisol tested just in blood work in the morning, it would have told me maybe a little bit high, but like normal. When I tested my cortisol throughout the day, oh, she was high all day, all day. And so that explained all the symptoms I was having. And so cortisol is not just about high or low. It's, is it high at the right times and lower at the right times? Because we want it to gradually increase overnight. It peaks in the morning, wakes us up, and then tapers down, stays low over nighttime. Because if not, and we start having these like flipped patterns, or it's high for too long or low for too long, or we have people who flatlined, we see that belly weight gain. We see waking up between 2 and 4 a.m., the afternoon energy crashes where we're feeling wired, but our body feels physically exhausted, but our brain just won't turn off. We start having way more cravings for sugar and salt. Salt, in particular, is usually a sign of high cortisol levels. And we also find we're more easily overwhelmed. And I don't know if that sounds like anybody else, but that's me in a nutcase right there in a nutshell. And so, how does our cortisol levels really influence our ability to be able to lose weight? And so, the way I like to describe it is that we have this like stress bucket of amount of stress that we can tolerate. And so, we're always dumping into that bucket, right? Like we have not having good night's sleep, cutting our calories is a stress, not recovering enough, financial strain, Bob at work. We have our dog pooping on the floor. We're rushing around. We're living on caffeine and protein bars. Just so much stress, so much stretch. And we've normalized it, right? Because we're like, well, that's just life. It's normal. Everybody has it. It used to be worse before. I feel better now. Doesn't matter. Our body is still perceiving it as stress despite whatever we tell it. And so what happens is this bucket starts to overflow. And when this stress bucket overflows, it means that our cortisol levels have met that threshold. So once we've passed that threshold, what we see is now inflammation goes up. That on its own blocks fat burning, slows down your T3, T4 conversion. So now our body gets worse at burning calories, and we're actually blocking our fat burning pathway, which tells our body we have enough left store, even though we're eating less and moving more. It's going to decrease our sex hormones, which are already happening during perimenopause and menopause. And like, we don't feel great when progesterone tanks very quickly. We don't feel good when estrogen fluctuates like crazy. We see that our blood sugars get worse, even if you're not having carbohydrates, even if you're fasting, even if you're walking, you're doing all the right things. Stress will spike your blood sugars. We have so many clients who track their blood sugars now with CGMs. And it is crazy how much blood sugar is more drastically affected by their stress or lack of sleep than food alone. They can eat the same food the next day. If they are stressed, blood sugar spike and drop. And so this is because when we are in this stress state, when we are go, 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 and there's demand on us, our body goes, we need energy. So cortisol goes up. That's part of its job, is to provide us with energy, which is why we wake up in the middle of the night when we don't want to be. But it's dumping sugar into your bloodstream to provide you with energy to do the things. So it's easier for us to control our blood sugar through nutrition and having enough carbohydrates so that that cortisol response doesn't happen. And this is where, we can get really nitty gritty into that stuff. I'm not going to digress too much. But with cortisol, when that blood sugar regulation gets out of whack and we're seeing our blood sugars increase, that's going to increase our insulin, which blocks fat storage as well. And when we have insulin and cortisol together, it not only stores fat, it prevents you from burning fat. And that is not a good combination to be in. So you could be eating super clean and super great, but if your blood sugars are high because you are stressed and that insulin stays elevated because we're just doing this day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, insulin and cortisol are together. So you're storing fat and it prevents your body from burning fat. We don't want that. It's also going to slow down digestion, which increases inflammation and bloating more. We're going to see that it is going to slow down your liver detoxification, which increases inflammation more and further blocks your fat burning pathway. And it's going to result in energy crashes and poor sleep. And we know that one night of poor sleep is going to make you 25% more insulin resistant the next day. So this is where everyone freaks out about carbs. And I'm like, no, your stress and your sleep are impacting your blood sugar metabolism way more than anything else. And here's the kicker is that, when our estrogen declines, that stress bucket we have now gets smaller. So what we can handle now decreases. So before we were like, I could handle all this. And now and I'm gaining weight all of a sudden. And it's like, yeah, because you haven't changed what you're doing, but that bucket has decreased. Now it's overflowing so much more easily, blocking that fat burning through all the things we just talked about and pushing you into that storage state. So you're storing fat even though you're eating less and you're moving more. And so what happens with cortisol is like it's almost like a smoke alarm going off every time someone is, burning gingerbread cookies, and it's just happening all the time, all the time, all the time. And eventually the alarm's just like, we're just going to be on all the time because there's always chaos going on. And so when we stay in this elevated state, this is what happens. We are just constantly storing fat, regardless of what we're eating. And again, in perimenopause and menopause, much easier for this to happen. And it's been happening kind of low grade for a long time. And then menopause and those hormone changes really just expose it where you can't ignore it anymore. We were just getting away with it before. So that was thyroid and that was cortisol. The next hormone we want to look at is insulin resistance. I touched on this a little bit. But signs that we're struggling with blood sugar are, again, waking around the middle, bloating after meals, tired after eating, cravings even though you didn't eat that long ago, brain fog, skin tags or darkened skin around your neck and armpits as well. And so why does insulin cause us to gain weight? And so insulin itself isn't the problem. It's when our body stops responding to insulin that it's the issue. Because insulin is like the Uber Eats guy. I love this analogy. So it gets the call and it's like, hey, we got sugar in the bloodstream that we need delivered. And he goes, okay, picking up the sugar. So he comes, picks up the sugar, and is driving to the cells where they're supposed to go, to muscles, to organs, to all those things. Knocks on the door, and that will take the sugar. Amazing. It'll get used as energy. It'll get taken to our mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. It'll take that food, turn it as energy. You will have energy, and it's also going to get burned off, which is fantastic. That's what we want to happen when we eat food. However, if we are always having lots of sugar in our bloodstream, not because of carbs, but because of stress and lack of sleep, now the Uber Eats guy is knocking on the door and you're not answering. And so he's like, okay, I gotta call more of my buddies. We have all these orders accumulating and I can't get to them because I can't deliver this one before I go pick up the next one. And so he starts calling all his buddies. And so it takes longer for the cell door to open. However, if that door doesn't open, the Uber Eats guy goes, you know what? I'm just going to make a donation. I'm going to donate this meal somewhere. And it takes it to your fat cells. And then you start storing fat that way. And so what we see is carbs is not the issue here. It's the stress that's constantly dumping that sugar into your bloodstream, which happens way more easily now that our hormones have declined and we become more insulin resistant. And if we're not sleeping well, the doors already don't open as well. It's like it's muffled. It can't hear the knocking, and so you're more likely to store it as fat again. And so the takeaway here is it just all accumulates. So insulin is not the problem. Carbs is not the problem. Is your body able to get the sugar out of the bloodstream and respond appropriately? And the answer for most people is not. Taking out carbohydrates doesn't fix that problem. It doesn't suddenly make your body better at utilizing carbs. It doesn't suddenly make you less insulin resistant, less stress. In fact, low carbs increase cortisol. And so it's learning how to kind of tie this all together, which we're going to talk about at the end. Then we have estrogen and progesterone together. That's the next one. So we had thyroid, which is very common in perimenopause, menopause, and beyond. We have cortisol, which is honestly what we're all dealing with. We have insulin, and now we have the estrogen and progesterone balance. And so what happens when we're going through perimenopause and menopause is progesterone will drop first. If you are high stressed, if there's lots of cortisol, it will tank even quicker because cortisol will actually take some of the resources that we need to build progesterone and it'll get shuttled to cortisol instead, which we don't want because progesterone is what makes our families love us. When we have adequate progesterone, we are calm, we are relaxed, we are less irritable, everything kind of rolls off our back. We're more go with the flow. Our families love when we have enough progesterone. So if we're already stressed, we're eating low carb, progesterone tanks real quick, faster than it needs to in perimenopause and menopause. And so what we happen to see is estrogen dominance. So you could still have low estrogen, but if it's too low or if it's too high compared to progesterone, even if they're both low, we need that balance between the two. You are estrogen dominant. Estrogen dominance is typically what we see with people who have things like PMDD, who have really intense PMS symptoms. So if you're someone who growing up suffered with this, weight gain in hips, thighs, lower belly, breast tenderness, mood swings, irritability, bloating, fluid retention, sleep disruptions, this is a clear sign that, you're probably dealing with some estrogen dominance here. And this can cause weight gain because estrogen largely influences where fat is stored, which will be, bellies. We see increased inflammation. We see impacted insulin and disrupted sleep, all because of how estrogen and progesterone change in this time in your life. And so now we see inflammation go up so much easier, which will also increase cortisol. And cortisol goes up easier, which increases inflammation. Both those things block fat burning. We're going to see our blood sugar control gets worse, which we already talked about. Big issue. It's going to negatively affect sleep, which makes blood sugar even worse. And so it kind of creates this perfect storm where if this was already happening under the surface, that change in your hormones just like turns up the dial and amplifies the issues that were already happening under the surface. It really reveals the curtain of like, hey, this is what I've been trying to cover up for the last however many years. Not my problem anymore. I put in my time. And so it's almost like the way I like to explain like estrogen and progesterone is like they're two best friends hosting a party. When they're working well together and there's enough of one with the other, the party runs smoothly. Energy is good, mood, sleep, metabolism, everything. When estrogen dominates and progesterone is low, estrogen becomes incredibly bossy and she just takes over everything and the party gets chaotic. We're talking bloating, irritability, craving, poor sleep. And so we want to make sure these two hostess are not out of sync because otherwise the party doesn't feel like a party anymore. It feels like a nightmare. And so we want to make sure that we are doing everything that we can to support these things. So making sure that we are, progesterone and estrogen are still going to drop, but can we control like how wild those swings are? Can we make this big roller coaster up and down of estrogen more into like a nice little kiddie ride? And can we just help support progesterone as best as we can so we don't have these massive imbalances anymore? And this is where understanding why that's happening is so important. From the stress, the way that we choose to eat, the fasting, the sleeping, all those things impact our hormones. And so this is where we need to understand, okay, HRT could be a tool, but is the problem still happening? Because HRT isn't going to fix the high stress, which is going to then influence poor blood sugar control, which is then going to result in diabetes, right? And so can it support your symptoms? Absolutely. And then it can help you be better equipped and feel better to make those changes. But a lot of people just take it and don't address the root cause of why were these so erratic in the first place? Why was I struggling so much in the first place? And then it just becomes really wild. And we end up with all these issues like cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, high blood sugars, high cholesterol, right? So we still have to address the why. Then we have low testosterone. So signs of low testosterone is feeling like a soft, squishy kind of body composition, hard to build or maintain muscle mass. We have low motivation, which makes doing anything incredibly hard, low libido, and we find our strength starts to decline as well. And so testosterone is like this unsung hero because when you don't feel motivated or like yourself, it is so much harder to get to the gym and do the things. It is so much harder to make better food choices. But also, testosterone helps build lean muscle mass. And we know that during perimenopause and menopause, our muscle building signal decreases because estrogen tells your body to build. Testosterone tells your body to build. Cortisol tells your body to break down. And so break down muscle, but store fat, which we do not want, right? And so what happens is estrogen goes down, testosterone goes down. That means the muscle building signal goes down. Cortisol goes up, muscle breakdown signal goes down or goes up. So now our body favors muscle breakdown and fat storage. And so without muscle or a decline in muscle, our body burns less calories at rest because muscle stabilizes our blood sugar, makes us more insulin sensitive. So helps with that whole blood sugar fat storage thing that we were talking about. It actually helps lower inflammation. It creates more of those mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. They're like little factories that take food and turn it into fuel. So the more muscle you have, the more of those that you have. And so what we see is as muscle declines, our body gets worse and worse and worse at burning calories. And our fat burning pathways get blocked due to inflammation and poor blood sugar control. And we get stuck in that storage pathway. And this is why we need to ensure that we are actually resistance training the right way. Doing random workouts, doing the group fitness, those aren't going to maintain your muscle mass. We have to actually send a signal intentionally to build muscle the right way because otherwise you are going to lose that muscle mass. We could get away with that stuff before. Now, with the way that our body is favoring stuff, you're not going to maintain or build muscle on accident. You have to be wildly intentional about it. And so that's like the 5 big ones. And then I want to talk about the combinations that seem to hit women the hardest here. Someone here asked a question, if I'm not eating until 4 to 15 hours overnight, will this be an issue with weight gain? What we recommend is eating within 90 minutes of waking. And there's a couple of reasons of this. Number one is cortisol is the highest in the morning that we talked about, right? And so that's what wakes you up, which is good. We want to bring it down because otherwise we're in that high stress state where we're going to, end up storing fat. We're going to block our fat burning pathways and we don't want that. And so when we eat in the morning, particularly with protein and carbs, we're going to see that cortisol come down because what happens is carbs lower cortisol. But we want to make sure we're not negatively affecting our blood sugars, right? So the way that we do this is within 90 minutes of waking to help bring that cortisol down, we are going to have food of some sort. So high protein, 25 plus grams, and pairing it with a carbohydrate. So for myself in this busy season, if I don't prep something, like I can't make more decisions than I'm already doing. It's very overwhelming and I just feel like I can't handle life. And you feel like you're failing in every place. And so what I do is I'm doing overnight oats right now because there's carbohydrates in the oats, there's protein powder, there's the Greek yogurt, and that is going to, stabilize my blood sugars because there's fiber and protein, which makes it so the blood sugar spike isn't high. It maintains and slowly comes down. Then you're not experiencing that energy crash. So then cortisol doesn't go up and start dumping sugar into your bloodstream. That also helps with your cravings as well. This can look like a breakfast bowl. I do this a lot. So I'll take whatever protein I have from the night before, whether it's ground beef or some chicken, turkey, whatever it might be. And then I have it with roasted potato or rice or whatever. Toss an egg on top, add some Dijon mustard. I'm a big Dijon mustard fan, but you can put whatever sauce that you want on top. Add in some greens or veggies for a bonus. You're good to go. The goal is try and eat some protein before you're dipping into your carbs to stabilize your blood sugars. The order of eating here will make a big difference to keep your blood sugar stable, help reduce those cravings, bring that cortisol down, and really support your body. Okay, so next category I want to talk about. So we talked about like those 5 big categories. I want to talk about the combinations because it is very rare, if ever, there's only one thing, right? There's always like, well, what if I have this and I have this? So I want to talk about some of the most common ones that we see because you're probably dealing with some of this stuff. So the first one that we see, high cortisol, low thyroid. This is a sign of burnout on top of a metabolism that is slow, that is not good at burning calories. This is someone who is going to gain weight even when they're eating quote unquote clean. They're having all their whole foods, right? So here's what's happening in your body. Your cortisol is going to be high because your body thinks that you're under constant stress, regardless whether you are acknowledging or not. Physiologically, that's what's happening. Because I am one of those people who I'm like, I feel fine. I don't feel stressed. Bring it on. I thrive in chaos is what I used to say, right? No, it's just familiar. So it's comfortable, even though it's not comfortable. My body does not like it. But when our high cortisol is there, it's high, it starts storing everything because it's like, we need to be prepared. I'm not going to go deep on this part, but if you want to listen to the podcast that came out yesterday, that will go deeper into this whole bit. Then we have our thyroid hormones, especially T3, that are low, which makes our body burn less calories. So this is like you have 2 feet on the brakes. You know, like when you're learning to drive, or at least you see it in movies where the learner driver car has the brakes on like both the driver side and the student side. You're both slamming on the brakes. Like your body is not going anywhere. This is a person who's going to feel tired but wired, cold hands and feet, digestion is slow, stubborn weight gain. You have a really hard time waking up, zero energy, and you just feel like the belly weight just keeps coming on even though you're eating healthy. And the reason that this combination results in such fast weight gain for a lot of women is a couple things here. One, cortisol dumping that sugar into your bloodstream that we talked about, which raises your insulin and increases fat storage. That high cortisol increases your reverse T3 that we talked about, that seal that goes in the lock. So your T3, the little that you do have, can't even get in the lock to turn on that calories. And, you know, we can see our metabolism slow down by like 200, 400 calories. Like it's significant. The body thinks it's unsafe and you can't eat less than that to be in a quote unquote deficit because that increases cortisol even more, which is going to cause your body to continue to hold on to fat. And so like imagine driving with a scared passenger pressing the emergency brake and your car's engine is stuck in like this eco mode, like low thyroid. You burn almost no fuel and your body stores everything that you eat. This is the whole, I swear I'm barely eating anything, but I'm gaining weight. And then your doctor's like, try fasting, try cutting out carbs. And that doesn't make you feel any better. It makes you feel worse because you're already struggling with energy. And so that's one combination that we see a lot. The next one that we see is insulin resistance with low estrogen. And so we see that blood sugar instability already. Our muscle mass starts to decrease and very fast abdominal weight gain. And this is because, again, when we're consuming the carbs aren't the problem, but our body isn't moving it to muscle. It's getting stored as fat. And estrogen dropping during perimenopause on menopause reduces that muscle building signal, makes insulin resistance even worse. And so this is where you feel that sudden belly weight, right? Where all of a sudden you feel like your pants are always tight, where you are bloated after meals, afternoon crashes. You feel like your muscle tone just kind of disappeared. You just feel fluffy. Sugar cravings, weight gain without changing anything. This is a big one. And your clothes just feel very tight. And so the reason this is so fast is because without estrogen and our muscle decreases, we burn fewer calories at rest. Lower muscle, we have less parking spots. I like to think of muscle as like a parking spot for all your carbs to sit in. We have less parking spots for carbs, but also for insulin resistant, it's already harder for that garage door to open for the cars to go into to park. And so we start storing it as fat instead. And then we start having these crazy blood sugar swings, which increase the cravings. It's so much easier to overeat. And so this is where you're like, man, I feel like ever since I hit perimenopause, everything just like settles in my stomach and it never used to. This is part of that. Another common one that we see is low progesterone and high cortisol, because high cortisol will tank progesterone every time because it steals the resources that we need to create progesterone. And what happens in this state is our sleep goes to crap, which makes us more insulin resistant, but we also will be eating more during the day. And high cortisol is going to dump that sugar into our bloodstream already. But what happens is when we have poor sleep, because our blood sugar gets worse, our cravings are worse and we'll have more swings. Studies show that on average, like having a poor night's sleep will result in like 200 to 400 calories more eating the next day, which is wild. Strictly just because you have less energy and your body's looking for those quick fixes from the chocolates and the cupcakes and the Cheetos or whatever your thing is, right? And this is someone who's, you know, waking up in the middle of the night, is anxious, irritable, feel oversensitive. Anybody else? That was a big one for me. Random weight spikes, emotional or stress eating, bloating, and you just kind of feel on edge. You're just like constantly waiting for that shoe to drop, which honestly is so exhausting. And so we see this increase your weight quickly because poor sleep increases your hunger. It's also going to decrease your leptin production, which is the hormone that tells you that you're full, but also tells you that you can burn fat. So we want that one to be working. The high cortisol blocks that fat burning, makes our blood sugars worse. The low progesterone is going to increase inflammation and water retention. So now we feel really puffy. The stress eating becomes more frequent because our brain is looking for comfort and energy. And then, of course, we're just going to see all that belly fat just keep storing. And then the last one that I wanted to talk about before we get into steps of what to do is low testosterone, high insulin. And again, there are so many different combinations, but these are just some of the more common ones that we typically see with testing. And so when we have low testosterone, we are going to have a harder time building muscle. If we are having high insulin, struggling with blood sugar, we're more likely to store carbs. And so this is very common to the estrogen and blood sugar one as well. Testosterone drops. Testosterone builds your muscle, and it is your biggest calorie burner. And high insulin is going to push calories to fat instead of muscle. And so this is why you feel your strength going down, you feel softer, motivation is low, it's hard to get toned even though you're busting your butt in the gym. Weight gain, even though you're working out, low libido, feeling heavy or sluggish, you just don't feel your best. And this combo causes faster weight gain because we have less muscle, which means our body burns less calories at rest. We have less places for glucose to go. It's more likely to get stored as fat. Our blood sugar is already wanting to do that. And you use almost nothing for energy. And so your body is constantly storing stuff. And so we want to make sure that we are addressing all these things because this is the phrase that I say all the time. If your fat burning pathway is blocked and your storage pathway is overactive, your body is constantly told we have enough, let's store. Even though you're eating less and moving more and you're eating clean and you're doing everything right. The calories aren't the problem. It's what your body is choosing to do with those calories. And your hormones play a huge role in what your body chooses to do with those calories. But we also have to look at why are your hormones doing what they're doing? Because most places are just going to give you, medications, prescriptions for stuff, Band-Aids. They're not addressing the root cause of why is this an issue in the first place, which is why we have to dig deeper. And unless this gets addressed, it is incredibly hard for you to lose weight or to keep it off. And these are things even we have clients that, have been on GLPs and, asked us for advice, left, came back, and we've had lots of people come back going, I should have listened because they didn't address the root stuff going on, or the GLPs just didn't even work because the system isn't functioning properly. And so we need to be able to ensure what is your body going to do with those calories. It can be a great tool, but we have to make sure we're not losing our muscle mass. We're still supporting our hormones. We're still supporting our blood sugar. We're still doing all those things because if you're coming off of them, then you haven't adjusted anything. The signaling is going to be all off. And so this is something that I feel very strongly about because I can't tell you how many women have come into our program post GLP where it's not going well or it didn't work well or they had worse side effects, things like that, because we need to understand why is the system here in the first place? How do we address the root cause? And so here are some steps that you can start doing. Simple stuff. I don't suggest doing all of them at once because we're going to fall off the wagon, right? We want to make sure this is something we can integrate into our lifestyle. So number one is we have to stabilize our blood sugars. Have to. And this does not mean avoiding carbs because if we avoid carbs, cortisol goes up, dumps sugar into our bloodstream, blood sugar goes to crap anyways. So number one is you want to balance your plate. What this looks like is if I am taking a plate, especially around the holidays, because I don't want to track stuff over the holidays, I'm going to be honest, right? It's just not, I don't want to. I just don't want to. I want to enjoy my food with friends and family, and that is totally fine. And so when I'm looking at my plate, I'm first going to put my protein and my fiber on there. So I'm going to put a third of my plate with some protein, whatever the option is. Then I'm going to add in some fiber, and this will look like some veggies, maybe some fruit, things like that. And then we're going to add in your carbohydrates. So the potatoes, if you're like me and love macaroni and cheese, if there's macaroni and cheese, that is the carb of choice for me for sure. And you're going to make sure that you're eating most of your protein and veggie first before dipping into your carbs. And this is what you should do at every meal. So let's say you want to have pasta. You go out and have some pasta. Have a side salad beforehand. Super easy. How every single meal that you sit down to eat, ask yourself, how can I ensure I eat some protein or veggies first before dipping into this? Don't overcomplicate it. Okay, maybe you're having a sandwich. Okay, how can I have some protein or veggie first? Veggies and dip, veggies and hummus. Amazing. Done. Keep it simple. Maybe you're having a lasagna, right? Maybe this is where you have that side salad. Maybe this is where you have even just a hard-boiled egg. Like, don't overcomplicate it. Even with treats, ask yourself, how can I add some protein or veggie first before having the cake? Like, order of eating. One of the easiest things that you could ever do. You don't have to change what you're eating that much. Just the order of eating will make substantial changes in your blood sugar control. The other thing we want to make sure that we're doing, as we already talked about, is eating within an hour of waking to help stabilize those blood sugars and the cortisol. Because what happens with most women is you wake up, you check your phone. I'm guilty of this too. I start reading my emails, which I should never do that early in the morning. And boom, cortisol goes up. If I don't get something into my stomach, my cortisol's gonna start dumping sugar into my bloodstream. But most of us check our email, we get ready, we chug caffeine, which also increases our cortisol. Caffeine also doesn't give you energy. There's no nutritional value in it. It just blocks you from feeling tired. And when you're tired, you become more insulin resistant, remember. And so now our blood sugars are getting worse because we're, just crushing our morning like a crazy person, living off caffeine, having half a protein bar, which also will increase inflammation from all the fake fibers and the preservatives and the sugar alcohols, which aren't so great, which is going to make the blood sugars even worse. And so you're already on this day where you are going to end up with sky high cortisol. That blood sugar is going to go up and it's inevitably going to crash. And now we're on this blood sugar roller coaster from the moment we wake up. If we have that breakfast within an hour of waking, within 90 minutes of waking, having coffee afterwards, oh my gosh, you see a slight rise, it maintains, it slowly comes down, you have your next meal, and it's just nice and stable. No craving issues, no energy issues. You are in control, and when your blood sugar is in control, it is less likely your cortisol will spike. Remember, when cortisol spikes, we see everything go to crap. Hormones, blood sugar, inflammation, energy, sleep, your digestion, your detoxification pathways, your muscle mass. And so this is a really great way to help support that. And then the other one that a lot of people forget about with blood sugar is avoid water around your meal times. I was sold into this whole thing too of if you drink water first, then you won't be hungry and you'll eat less. Here's what they don't tell you. If you drink a bunch of water before you eat, it dilutes your stomach acid, making it so that food doesn't digest as well because certain enzymes don't get released. And then it's almost like food ferments higher up in your digestive system than when it's supposed to, resulting in bloating. If you feel like you hear your tummy gurgling after meals quite loudly, usually it's because our stomach acid is diluted from drinking too much water at our meals. And that water will actually speed up how quickly your stomach empties, and then your blood sugar will spike. And so we want to make sure that we are, wanting food to empty your stomach more slowly, which is why we have the fiber, the veggies, the protein, because it just slows everything down. Whereas if we have carbs on its own or like liquids on its own, it goes through very quickly. This is why you should never have a latte by itself. Always have it right after a meal, a snack of some sort. So that's stabilizing blood sugar. The next one is we want to make sure that we are supporting our cortisol. If you've listened to the podcast, I think I've told you a bajillion different ways that you guys can do this, but here are a few of my favorites. 1, 5 slow deep breaths before you eat. Slowing down your breathing takes you out of that fight or flight state, slows down your heart rate, your breathing rate, your blood pressure, and allows everything to calm down. It'll also help you digest your food better to result in less bloating. So if you're someone who bloats a lot, just slowing down before your meals can make a massive difference. Having some sort of evening downtime routine. And it doesn't have to be those stupid things you see on the internet that it's like 2 hours long. Ain't no one got time for that. Maybe it's just like reading for a couple minutes. For me, it involves like just visiting with my husband and we're not distracted. And then we do a prayer at nighttime. And that's kind of how we like wind down. Maybe it's wearing blue blocker glasses if you're reading something. Maybe it's doing a devotional. Maybe it's doing some gratitude journaling, whatever that looks like for you. to, again, slow down your heart rate, your breathing rate, calm your nervous system down. This can look like feet up, laying on the floor, feet up on the wall, or laying on your bed with your feet up on the wall. This again lowers your heart rate, your breathing rate, and your blood pressure quite quickly, which pulls you out of that fight or flight state, which again is going to help support your blood sugar and your sleep. Getting enough sleep. Poor sleep increases cortisol. So sleep is something where if we can improve that, you will see massive difference. A lot of us are so caught up in doing all these crazy things and these wild routines and the crazy stuff, right? We're not focusing on one of the biggest things, which is sleep. Sleep lowers inflammation. It stabilizes your blood sugars. It allows muscle to grow. It's when your body detoxes the best. It is where our growth hormone increases so our muscle mass can actually start to grow better. Sleep is one of the most underrated things that if we cannot really focus on that, it is very, very hard to see changes because it impacts everything so much. So improving your sleep will improve all other areas of your metabolism, your body, things like that. And the other thing too that helps support your cortisol is eating enough calories, eating enough carbs. Low carb, low calorie, doing lots of fasting increases your cortisol. And unfortunately, this is where a lot of us, struggled because of how weight loss and stuff has been marketed for the last 10, 20, 30, 40 years, right? And also this is strength training over cardio. Doesn't mean you can't do cardio. The goal is always to make sure that if that's something that you enjoy, that we can get you there. But for a lot of our clients, we do have to pull them off of cardio for 6-8 weeks to allow their system to recover and then make sure we're actually feeding them appropriately and matching that so they can get back to the things that they love without it being detrimental to their health. The next category is supporting your thyroid. Protein at every single meal. Super important. Managing stress because stress is going to tank your conversion of T4 to T3. It's going to increase that reverse T3, put that cover on that lock so you can't get into the fat burning state. So stress management, making sure that you're getting protein at every meal and eating enough calories, eating enough carbs are key for supporting your thyroid. This is something that you cannot address your thyroid appropriately without addressing those three things. We also want to make sure that we are reducing inflammation because with inflammation, what we see is that blocks that fat burning pathway. And the issue I see is everyone has been so pushed to protein. Nothing wrong with protein, but it depends on your source of protein. What we see is so many people go for the convenience packaged proteins. We're talking the protein powders, the protein bars, the protein pancakes, the protein muffins, the low carb breads, the high protein wraps. They are filled with so many fake fibers. They are filled with so many preservatives, sugar alcohols that can really inflame our body and just in a low grade way that people have no idea. When we pull these foods out and only use them as like an actual emergency. So if you're having a protein bar in your car and it's just there for like just in case, but your just in case happens to be 5 days a week, that's not just in case anymore. That's poor planning, unfortunately. And I hate to call people out that way, but it's the truth. And so making sure we're actually having more whole foods. And so, for example, in our coaching program, when we start with people, we do our Dutch testing with them to figure out where's everything at. We do our in-house assessments as well. We get them moving into a bit of a challenge where we're focusing on increasing more whole foods. And then we go into a protocol where it's actually meal plan based. Now, I used to be super against meal plans because I'm like, you don't learn anything and all these things. But what we're finding is when we're doing this short-term meal plan, it only lasts for 2 to 4 weeks and it's very whole food based. It has been insane. And we've been very specific with the kinds of foods that are in there and stuff like that too. And there's substitution lists and all those things. So there's flexibility. But what we're seeing is like your liver improves so much more. Your detoxification pathways and inflammation it is wild. We're seeing people lose like 10 pounds in 3 to 4 weeks. It's insane. And they're not dropping calories. They're not even working out at this point when they're doing the meal plan because we're so focused on anti-inflammation, and working out does increase inflammation. And it's not bad inflammation, but we're so just trying to pull everything into a solid baseline Because then when we start adding things in, we can see, what does your body actually view as stress? Does it view exercise as stress or not? Does it view a calorie changes as a stress? Does it view certain foods as a kind of stress? And we can really see, but we need to like kind of flush out the body to get this good baseline to see where things actually work. And we see people who, used to take ibuprofen every night and now their joint pain is decreasing. What we're seeing is by focusing on very specific whole foods and the hydration, making sure we're getting enough magnesium, making sure we're getting enough minerals, we're doing the stress management stuff. It's been insane. Like, I was very nervous to make these changes. Like, we tried it with a few people and I was like, oh, I just don't know. I just don't know. And it has completely revolutionized things, but also people feel so good after that. Then they can really tell when they've started having a little bit too much processed food and which foods affect them more, because we can see, we all think we eat pretty well, right? Lots of our clients, like, I thought I ate well, but you come in and it's like, wow, I actually am only eating like a vegetable a day. Maybe I get like 3 fruit in a week. Like, it's been very eye-opening at how much the food affecting the inflammation impacts sleep, energy, digestion, your scale, fluid retention. It's been wild, because what happens is as soon as that inflammation comes down, that fat burning pathway isn't blocked anymore. And so all of a sudden now, without changing calories, your body is getting this signal to burn, which is freaking amazing. And so we don't have to manipulate things a ton, because now we can see, oh my gosh, things are functioning, things have opened up, and it's fantastic. And again, we've been beta testing this with our clients for the last 4 or 5 months, and it's been phenomenal. And so we're very excited about it. But the reducing inflammation piece is something that a lot of people miss, especially since in perimenopause and menopause, estrogen goes down, inflammation naturally just goes up. And so if it was already kind of under the surface, just it increasing just a little bit is enough to kind of block that fat burning for a lot of women. And so to help reduce inflammation, whole food diet, like aiming for like 2 fruit a day if you can, if not more. Veggies, aiming for like 3 veggies a day, if not more. But again, we're starting slow, right? Like, it doesn't have to be this massive, big change, slow changes over time. I highly recommend supplementing with magnesium at nighttime. 400 milligrams makes a wonderful difference for you. And then, of course, stress management and sleep is going to be massive in this category as well. And then the 5th one is making sure we're actually building muscle in a way that builds muscle. And so this is where we're doing, 2 to 3 strength trainings weekly. They're full body. We're following the same program for 5 weeks. So every Monday looks the same. Wednesday might look different than Monday, but every Wednesday looks the same. Every Friday looks the same. And we're trying to lift heavier every single week. If you can lift 2 above the rep range, it's too light for you. So either you need to lift heavier or slow down the movement so you can't do 2 above the 10 that you're supposed to be doing in the program. And over time, by doing this over the course of 5 weeks and getting stronger, you send that muscle building signal to your brain to actually build and maintain. And again, it's very hard to build in this time of our life. And so you're not going to end up like the Hulk. Like, you're never going to wake up one day and be like, oh crap, it happened. Because it takes so much time, so much intentionality. It's hard work. It takes a lot of work. And so it's not going to be something that's just, you have to be worried about. The best part is that you can lose it really quickly in this time of your life. So you can, taper back and get to the physique that you want. And then, of course, with building muscle mass, sleep is a non-negotiable and having protein is a non-negotiable. Otherwise, it literally will not happen. And so that's kind of my like spiel of our hormones causing your weight gain. Yes, but we have to understand what's making those changes to your hormones. There's a lot of things that can happen there, right? And so it's really understanding, where are you, what's causing these things, and then how can we address those things for you? If anyone has any questions, please pop it in the chat. I feel like I just like verbally threw up on all of you guys, so hopefully it wasn't too much. There will be a guide that comes out Friday for you guys as well with the replay too. The guide will have some of the information in there, not as in depth as this, because otherwise it'd be super, super long. But I hope there's things that you can take away in terms of how you're going to start maybe changing things, adjusting things. You're the first ones that are going to find out, but we are actually going to be having a program where we get to do that meal planning stuff with you guys, with the meal plan, the highly anti-inflammatory one, That's going to be in January. So if you want details on that, please email me. It's Stephanie at VitalityOET.com, and I'm more than happy to give you some more information. So you guys will hear all that news before everybody else does. So if you want details and a chance to work with me, also, there's only 5 spots to work with me. So there's that option too. But yeah, if you have questions, you guys, please don't hesitate to reach out. I know this can be a lot of information to consume, and it can be hard to kind of navigate. Very good question here. Why is GLP being prescribed in masses for women struggling with weight loss over the age of 40? I'm from India, and 3 very reputable and highly marketed programs are selling GLPs. Yes, so we actually partner with a couple medical, not practitioners, not businesses, clinics. That's what I'm looking for. Clinics that can prescribe GLPs. But my thing is it necessary? And is it actually solving the root problem that's being sold in a way? And I forget who was talking about this. I saw it on a podcast recently as well, and it was very cool to see someone, maybe it was Dr. Tina. Anyways, they were talking how wildly irresponsible it is for a doctor to prescribe a GLP without actually providing adequate nutritional counseling with it. Because the issue is that people will dose things pretty high, right? We want to do the minimum effective dose if we can. But what we're seeing is people are losing weight at such a rapid rate from under eating because it's an appetite suppressant, right? And there's other benefits to it too. Don't get me wrong. Like there's other things that it absolutely can help with. But what we're seeing is we're losing weight at such a rapid rate that we're losing a lot of muscle mass. And for our population in general, that's very detrimental because most people aren't keeping track of their food at all, right? So we're seeing an under eating of protein, which protein isn't just about muscle mass. Huge important thing about muscle mass. But also, if we don't have adequate protein, we can't detox properly. Our liver will start to take a hit. We'll see that we will become more inflamed. Our metabolism starts to slow down. And what we see is a lot of people aren't changing or doing lifestyle habits that will help them maintain the loss. And so the way that I like to explain this is you have to have the identity to sustain the results, right? So challenging seasons that we go to, I just gave a talk about this with our clients on Monday, where when you're going through a very challenging season, it is very easy to want to just go back to what feels comfortable, normal, what you've always done. But if you do that, you will not become a person who can maintain those results. And we can see that the muscle loss is a huge, huge problem. We know muscle loss doesn't just have to do with like metabolism and how well your body can burn calories. Independence. I think it was Dr. No, not Marie. Dr. Vonda, maybe. Osteoporotic risk has increased substantially. We know that when estrogen goes down, our risk of hip fractures increases a ton. And because women are not strength training, they're not eating adequate amounts of protein to support their bodies, the instance of fractures is increasing massively. And we know that if you break a hip, on average, it takes 7 years off your life, which is insanity. 7 years. That's the difference of being here at 75 and being here at 82. That's crazy. That's the difference of, 75 versus, what is that, 68. For some of us, that isn't even that far away. That would be less than half of our life left. And so it's understanding that, can this be used? Because we know like being quite overweight is obviously going to have negative health effects, correct? However, are we doing things in a way that is supporting this person long term, where we don't have to be on this forever? That's the other thing. Because what happens if something gets called off, right? Then we're screwed. And we haven't changed anything. Do you think you're going to maintain the weight loss doing what made you gain weight in the first place? No. And so that's where there's like this ethical responsibility I feel very strongly about, because, and I talked about this in the podcast yesterday, I think I even teared up in this one, where People don't realize the discomfort that we have right now. I get it. You want to lose the weight. Totally. I've been there. I understand. It's uncomfortable. And you just want to feel like yourself again. And you're just like, this is that glimmer of hope that it's going to work, right? And it's going to be helpful. However, what people don't realize is by doing this the inappropriate way or this shortcut, there's always consequences, right? You have to take responsibility with it, and we have to try and counteract those negative consequences. And so what happens is we start losing muscle mass. Our metabolism slows down. Digestion can get worse. Our hormones can tank. Our stress increases more because taking a GLP doesn't magically take your stress down, right? And so what happens is then when people come off of this, they get into a worse health position than when they started. And we are trading our discomfort right now for like 10 years off of our life that we had no idea. Because what happens is when our metabolism slows down and we can't get into this fat burning state anymore, because eventually it stops working, right? We can only eat so little. And then we have to do something different. We have to reset our metabolism, get our body into a better position. And what happens is we cannot get into our fat burning state. And that means A, we can't burn fat, but B, something very important happens when we're able to get into this AMPK pathway, they call it, this fat burning pathway. And it's that it allows us to eat up dead cells. This is important because then we have these things called zombie cells. When we can't get into that fat burning state, our cells start to deteriorate more quickly, they age more quickly, and they eventually become these zombie cells that just keep emitting inflammation. These cells can increase our risk of things like diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and certain cancers. And so what people don't realize is the amount of stress that we experience from environmental things, psychologically, the types of food choices that we make, the kinds of exercise we do or do not do, the sleep we do not get, all of those things are impacting that. And it's the perfect breeding ground for disease. And so we are trading wanting to lose the 10, 15, 20 pounds right now because we're so uncomfortable. We don't realize that we're taking 10, 20 years off of our life. That's what happened to my mom. She was in a very high stress state. She was go, go, go. She was everything for everyone else. She was, working multiple jobs. She was not sleeping well. My dad was abusive, physically, emotionally. Like I watched him throw my mom over a couch one time. Like my mom went through it, but also never asked for help. And at the same time, she was going through perimenopause, menopause. She had fibroids from estrogen dominance because her stress was so high that, of course, her progesterone was too low. So estrogen ran rampantly. And now she was having fibroids and things like that. Was gaining weight. I would watch her eat a salad, which is salt and pepper, because quote unquote healthy, right? Taking the dressing off. Being super active, and like from the outside, like, yeah, she had some weight to lose at certain points in her life, but people would deem her as like relatively healthy. And then cancer got her. And it's because she was in this high stress, go, go, go state, trying to like survive and all the stressors and, had all this inflammation and was eating too little. And we just never, you can never figure it out until you look backwards. And now to me, it's so glaringly obvious, but it's because I've become so obsessed with this and doing things the right way. And my fear is that we're going to see more and more people lose their moms earlier because of how the diet industry and stuff is. And so like for me, I just think there is such a huge ethics gap because the first thing is do no harm. That's rule number one. If that's anything I ever learned in university was ethics 101. Do no harm is the first rule. And I think it's irresponsible to give people those things without talking about the long-term consequences, without explaining what the negative side effects are, and what the risks are if not done appropriately. And the research for low muscle mass, like we know surgical outcomes are drastically reduced, like worse surgical outcomes with less muscle mass, longer hospital stays, you will have more surgical complications. Your all-cause mortality goes down when your muscle mass goes or your goes muscle mass goes up. So by having less muscle mass, you're at a higher risk of death because you have less muscle. And so that's my issue with the GLP. Do we have clients who are on it and they're doing fine because we're doing the other things too, right? To help support them. The food noise is too much for them. And now that's not a thing anymore. We can focus on the food quality and we can focus on the de-stressing and it's great, but you have to understand their tools because if you use it as the only reason you're doing something, that's when it becomes very, very dangerous. And that's not to like scare anyone. It's just my responsibility to make sure that you know these things. And so, yeah, like so if you're on a GLP and you want to stop, I don't suggest going cold turkey. I have a client right now who's like slowly coming off of it as well. And we're working on all those things, right? We did a Dutch test and we see where her cortisol is and it's tanked. And so we're not even at a place where we can push in the gym because her body's not good at producing energy because her cortisol's tapped out. And so we need to understand where your body is right now. What are the limiting factors? What are the biggest red flags and the risks? And then how can we, like, what's the plan to address that? And it can be a lot sometimes. Like we have a nice big roadmap that we go through with people and we're like, hey, these are the biggest flags that we see. Here's what we're going to address. And sometimes I don't even go over it with my clients is I'm like, I'm just going to give you what you need as we go along. This is step number one. Once we accomplish this, now we go on to the next thing because again, it's important that you're able to do this stuff and you're learning, but you're not overwhelmed because let's face it, all of us are super overwhelmed. You Google everything and you're dying or it's menopause, right? Let's be honest. It's kind of the situation that we're at right now. And it's overwhelming because you're like, I don't know who to listen to. I don't know what's going to work for my body. I've tried so many things and I'm just exhausted and it's just overwhelming. And so if you get slammed with this huge plan, it's overwhelming too. And so it's understanding, what's that fine line for each person. And, sometimes you do just need someone to tell you what to do, when to do it, how long to do it, what order to do it. Because you could be doing the right things, but if we're doing it for the wrong amount of time or in the wrong order, you might not get to where you want to be either. And so that's just where it kind of gets to be a bit challenging and frustrating. And I get it. I've been there. All of our coaches have been there. Even ones who are quite young. It's, if you knew the hormone stuff that they've been through and dieting stuff they've been through or the stress and trauma they've endured, like we all have a story that got us to the point of why we're doing what we're doing. And we've all had to ask for help at some point. And I think that's the hardest thing to do because we're just told we're supposed to have it all together. And I don't know, we should just know. Or like we shouldn't complain because it's not that bad. You go to the doctor and they're like, oh, it's just menopause. Oh, it'll be fine. Like, oh, it's just some hot flashes. It's like, no, like it's affecting my confidence. It's affecting how I show up at work. It's affecting my sleep. It's affecting my relationships. Like it is a big deal, right? And so this is just where I think information is very helpful and it's like our due diligence to tell you guys these things, but it is tough to manage in terms of like the overwhelm side. So if you guys have questions, like book a consultation call with us. Like they're not sales calls. If you want to talk about coaching, we can talk about coaching. There's inquiry calls for that too. We never pressure you guys to like purchase ever on a call. We always say take a few days, think about it, ask all your questions, all those things. But if you book a consultation call, it is strictly to go over like, where are you? What are the first steps that you can take to move in the right direction? Obviously, we can't get like a super precise plan for you because, we want to do the testing, all that kind of stuff. But with asking questions that you guys fill out on that form, we can get a really, really, really good start of where are you? Because if you're at Google Maps and I'm like, I want to go to Vegas, the Google Maps doesn't know where I am. It can't tell me where to go. And so what I'm just going to get in my car and just drive and hopefully I get there one day. It doesn't sound like a very good plan. And so we need to establish where you are first, and then we can start building that map for you. And so if you want to book a consult call, we have those too. They're in like every email that we send out. The replay for this webinar will be in the guide that comes out on Friday. Depending how people like it, I might post it on YouTube too, so more people can see it. But I hope this makes sense. I know this was all about, are your hormones causing weight gain? Short answer, they can be. but what's causing your hormones to be the way they are. Because it's not just menopause. There's always something underneath the surface, right? Like there's always a reason why. And that's why we do what we do, because someone has to ask the questions, right? But I love you guys so much. If you guys don't have any questions, you guys are free to go. And if you need anything, dang it, like I knew I wasn't going to be an hour, you guys. This is what always happens. But I hope this was helpful. If you have questions, email me. It can be about coaching. It can be about calories. It can be about whatever. I will always answer. Sometimes it just takes me some time. And then I can always share those consultation call links with you guys too, if you guys want to hop on a call to chat all this stuff out, because we're always more than happy to do that. And those are complimentary as well, because it's confusing enough. It's nice to just talk to a person for a change instead of feeling like you're jumping from place to place. So I love you guys so, so much. Have a wonderful rest of your night. Merry Christmas if I don't talk to you till after that. And I will talk to you soon. Bye.